Before we start, I want to apologize in advance for any background noise. I'm having some plumbing work done, so I'll stay on mute as much as I can.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to call the Governor's Cybersecurity Task Force meeting to order. It's 10 a.m. November 7th. And Shereen, can you take the roll, please?
Tim Robb,
Here.
Bob Denhart,
Here,
Paul Embley,
I'm here, thank you.
David Fogerson,
Present.
Sanford Graves,
Here.
Tim Horgan,
Here.
Akeem Patel,
Here.
General Pearl,
I'm here.
Sandy Rubalid,
Present.
James Wood,
Here.
Samantha Laddick.
I'm here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll move into public comment. No action may be taken upon a matter which raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per the discretion of the chair, and comments will not be restricted based on viewpoint. The information to make public comment is included in the agenda, and we will also give some time for the YouTube to catch up. It's usually about 60 seconds behind. So is there any public comment in the room? No public comment in the room. We'll give just a second for the live stream to catch up, and then we'll jump into any call-in public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to make public comment this morning? If you're on the phone, you may need to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
And there was no, Chair, this is Shereen for the record, and there was no written comment either.
Awesome, thank you. We will close out agenda item number 2 and move into number 3. We'll do quick introductions of folks on the task force. My name is Tim Robb. I am in the governor's office and will serve as the chair of the cybersecurity task force. And I'll call on each individual from the task force to give a quick introduction. Just name, the seat that you're sitting in, and then also the organization that you currently work for. We'll start with Bob Denhart.
apologies, I just lost you on my screen.
Oh, Bob, I think you went back on mute. We could start with Paul. Bob, we'll come back to you.
Which Paul?
You go ahead.
Okay. Paul Embley. I am with the Nevada Supreme Court representing the judiciary.
Thank you very much. Dave Fogerson.
Dave Fulgerson, I'm Nevada's Emergency Manager, Homeland Security Chief, and I'm representing the Division of Emergency Management.
Sanford Graves.
Yeah, I'm the ISO for the legislature representing the LCB.
Tim Horgan.
Good morning. My name is Tim Horgan. I am the Chief IT Manager and I represent the Secretary of State's office.
Thank you very much, Akeem.
Good morning. This is Akeem Patel. I am the administrator of the OCDC, the Office of Cyber Defense Coordination, and I'm here representing the Office of Cyber Defense Coordination.
Thank you, General Pearl.
Hey, good morning. General Mike Pearl from the Nevada National Guard, the director of the Joint Staff, and I'm a member of the Cybersecurity Task Force.
Thank you very much, Sandy.
Good morning. I'm Sandy Rublid. I'm a Deputy Administrator and Chief IT Manager representing the Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Sandy. We'll go to James Wood.
Hey, good morning, James Wood. I'm work for Washoe County, and I'll be representing Washoe County.
Thank you very much, Bob. Are you able to get off mute again?
Yes, sorry about that. Bob Denhart, I'm the State Chief Information Security Officer, working in the Department of Administration, and I represent the executive branch.
Thank you very much, Bob. I think with that, we can close out agenda item number 3, move into number 4. Samantha Laddick with the Nevada Attorney General's Office, and we'll learn a little bit about the open meeting law and considerations we have here with this task force.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Samantha Laddick, and I'm with the Nevada Attorney General's Office. My role at these task force meetings is to advise you on the Nevada open meeting law, which you'll hear me refer to as the OML. For those of you who don't know, the OML can be found in Chapter 241 of the Nevada Revised Statutes. And the intent of the law is to ensure that public bodies conduct their business openly in the public view, including your deliberations and any voting you may do as a task force. So at the Attorney General's Office, we're here to promote openness and transparency in government, and we are here to assist public bodies to comply with the open meeting law. So I'm just going to break this down in kind of its simplest form of things that I'll be looking out for at a meeting like this one or any public meeting. The first is to ensure public notice. And when I say public notice, I'm just referring to the agenda that you guys have in front of you. That agenda needs to be posted to public websites and at certain locations 3 business days in advance of a meeting by 9 a.m. And so that's kind of one of those hard rules of the open meeting law. If it's not posted by that time, we would have to cancel the meeting. For the most part, that's not going to really be a concern of any of the members. The Division of Emergency Management is handling the agenda posting process and has a tremendous amount of experience in public meetings. And so I have all the faith in the world that will go well. But just so you guys know, if you're hoping to add something to the agenda or change an agenda, once it's been posted 3 business days in advance of the meeting, it can no longer be changed. And if it doesn't get posted, the meeting cannot happen. So that's one of those hard rules. It's just worth noting. Another item I'm looking for is to ensure quorum at a meeting. Quorum is the simple majority of voting members. So I'm not referring to this public body, but if the public body has 10 voting members, if 6 people don't show up, we don't have a meeting. So we just need a majority of the voting members to attend. What that means to you, I would think would have to do with your availability. If you say you're going to come to a meeting and the task force is counting on you for quorum, if your availability changes, please reach out to the task force and let them know, just so we can ensure quorum for these meetings and we don't waste people's time trying to have meetings that don't have the ample attendance that we need. Third, public comment. So you'll see on the agenda today, we have 2 periods of public comment, one at the beginning of the meeting that we've already done, and then one before the conclusion. That is required by Chapter 241, multiple periods of public comment on the agenda. So you'll see those on all of our agendas, and it's just an opportunity for the public to speak up and provide input to this task force. One of the harder parts of my job is ensuring that you guys stick to the agenda during the meeting. And I know it sounds basic, but it's really easy to start talking about something and then kind of get off in other topics. And if that were to happen, I will speak up and just tell you to try to get your conversation back on course with the printed agenda. And that's really, the chair will take a huge role in ensuring that the discussions kind of stay on track. But if I just pop in and advise you that I feel like it's getting a little bit off track, that's all I'm trying to say, is to try to just focus your conversation on what's on the agenda. If you want to discuss something or vote on something that is not on the agenda, it's not going to happen at that meeting. You know, the best thing you can do is prepare that for the next agenda and just prepare that for the next meeting. Let's see, voting. So when we vote as a task force, we have to not only do it publicly, but we also have to do it verbally. So it's really important then when the chair calls for a vote, you take your phone or your computer off of mute and you verbally vote. And then that will indicate whether you're in favor or against a motion. Meeting accessibility, we've got to ensure that we have adequate room for the public if we're having a physical location. If we're having a virtual meeting like we are today, we just have to ensure that the phone number we provide and the YouTube link we provide are working and active. And if they're not, we would have to also cancel the meeting. Those are just the things that we're providing to the public to say, if you want to be part that are drawn up after the meeting that you will get to approve at the next meeting. You'll get to review and approve them. Just keep in mind that when you speak on the during the meeting, that you want to identify yourself, put your name on the record. It really helps when they're developing the minutes after the meeting if you've identified yourself during the meeting. So really that's the basics, right? We're trying to provide ample opportunity for the public to participate. We're trying to have a transparent government process. It sounds easy enough, but I will say the devil is in the details on the open meeting law. There's 60 years of case law and attorney general's opinions that kind of tell us how to conduct ourselves under the open meeting law. And, I'm here to help you navigate that. So please consider me a resource. I'm here to help and just to ensure that you don't run afoul of the open meeting law. So if you have any questions or concern, don't hesitate to speak up. That's why I'm here. And I'll leave it at that unless there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Laddish. Is there any questions by members of the task force on open meeting law? Awesome. I think many of us have probably been engaged in open meeting law conversations for quite some time at this point. So I really appreciate that overview and reminders of the basics of what we need to be paying attention to. I think with that, we can close out agenda item number 4 and move into number 5, the review and approval of the task force charter. This is for discussion and possible action. And we will quickly just run through what the charter includes. The background on the cybersecurity task force and kind of why it was established through an executive order is to be able to be eligible for federal money that's coming through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That served as the foundation for what's included in the task force and kind of the mission of the task force. But in addition to that, we also want this to be very much a productive conversation between a lot of the partners that we want to have at the table. We want to have voices from cities, counties, other state agencies involved in how we're working through our cybersecurity posture. And so this will serve as that piece of the public process in how we're going to be addressing cybersecurity going forward. We will also be subject to the open meeting law. So this is the body that we will bring a lot of the discussions about the IIJA funding and kind of the postures we'll be taking. The task force members are also included in the charter. These are exactly from the executive order. And then there is the aspect of the chairperson, which is myself as the governor's appointee to the task force. The state administrative agent, the chief of the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security will act as the state's administrative agent and will be working directly with the federal partners to ensure compliance with all of the grant requirements and ensure that we're able to get the money where it needs to be. And then meeting frequency, we will probably be talking a little bit more about what that needs to look like in a later agenda item, but we will have several meetings, I think, throughout the year to ensure we're able to make sure the priorities are being upheld and we're able to get the reporting to where it needs to be. And then the duties are also based on the executive order and are outlined here in the charter. The support for the task force will be done through the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. So all of the meeting information, posting of all of the stuff that Ms. Laddish also talked about in the open meeting agenda item, they'll be kind of running point on making sure that that's all there as well. And really, the agreement here at the bottom, we want to make sure that these are open conversations and that we have the right voices at the table and that we are considering all of the aspects of cybersecurity preparedness and being able to build a strategy that we can actively respond to something if needed, and have the resources in place and know what those resources need to look like and how to access them. But we also want this to be a very collaborative environment that we're all able to have a piece to the puzzle and inform the strategy going forward. So with that, I think we can open it up to any discussion on the charter, any edits that may be asked for through the task force members. Is there anybody that wants to? I'll go ahead.
In the event of a meeting conflict, are we allowed to send an alternate or designate a representative?
So I would refer to Ms. Laddish, but I don't believe that is possible. It has to be the appointed member to the task force to be able to be represented in that seat.
Thank you. This is Samantha Laddick for the record. Yes, the law was changed 5 or 6 years ago. I shouldn't even put, it's probably been longer than that, but they did specifically put in the law that, what are we talking about? We're talking about, what's the word that I'm looking for? What?
Proxy.
Proxies, thank you. That proxies are no longer allowed under the open meeting law. So what your memory is correct. And so you can send someone to listen and take notes and, you know, to be here, but they will not count as a voting member and they will not count towards quorum. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. And Ms. Laddick, it looks like Wesley Harper from League of Cities would like to say something. Is that okay during this agenda item? I know we don't have public comment on this aspect. Is that?
Let me get off mute here. Yeah, that's chairman's call. You don't have to take public outside of public comment, but if you'd like to, you're welcome to.
Okay, Mr. Harper, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, this is actually Randy Robinson from City of Las Vegas. I'm here with Wesley Harper from the League. Thanks for recognizing us. Thanks for organizing this meeting. I just wanted to raise a point. You mentioned it earlier in some of your open remarks that you'd be hearing from cities and counties and all kinds of different agencies. And that is certainly appreciated. I was a member of the former state cybersecurity force or task force several years ago when I was in the private sector and did a lot of work on the issue statewide. And so I appreciate seeing this task force reconvened, particularly for the specific purpose that it is. I would just like to add, though, from my perspective, I think the membership is one perspective short in terms of representation from the city level of local government. Although we tend to and like to work with our county counterparts, we have different areas of responsibility, and so sometimes that creates different perspectives in not only the services that we provide, but in this case, the cybersecurity risks that we encounter and try to mitigate against. And I know you've mentioned here in this meeting and elsewhere that everyone's welcome to come and participate in the meetings. And we certainly appreciate that, and we plan to, particularly as the largest city in the state. But I think the difference for me and for those of you, I'm sure there are many of you who participated in tons of these kinds of task force and organizational meetings over the course of the years. And I know it's tough to get everybody represented because you don't want a committee of 83 people. But I think, as you heard your counsel say, that you know, there's a difference between a voting member and just a participating member of the public. And so I'm not sure what the process would be, but I'd certainly offer the recommendation that you include city representatives. And again, so you don't have to worry about having 13 different city, rural, urban, small, big, north, south. The League of City does a great job representing all of us. And I would think that would be a valuable contribution to this task force. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the charter? I do, oh, Bob. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Yes, Bob Denhart for the record. Under the duties listed, I would welcome the opportunity to be included in item F regarding receiving advice and recommendations for legislative action, just in case there's any legislative action needed towards NRS 242 or anything that's going to be impacting the executive branch of government. I'd really like to be involved in those conversations.
Sounds great. Thank you, Bob. Any other discussion? I did have one edit that I think we should make under the chairperson. It says co-chair, but I think we should change that to vice chair. So with those additions, I'll take a motion to approve the charter.
Bob Denhart, so move.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Sandy Rublet, I second.
I'll take Sandy's second, and we'll move to a vote, or actually discussion. Is there any discussion on the movement? Okay, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We will move into item number 6, nominations and selection for a vice chair. So the cybersecurity task force will select a vice chair to preside over meetings in the absence of the chair. Members will nominate and vote for members to serve as vice chair. Do I have any nominations for vice chair?
Chair, I nominate the Chief Information Security Officer, Bob Denhart.
Do you have a second?
Sandy Rublet, I second.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Do we have any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, I think we are good to take it to a vote. All those in favor of, or actually, yeah, all those in favor of Bob Denhart being vice chair, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Bob. We will move into item number 7, discussion on the state and local cybersecurity grant program administered through the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. This is for discussion only, and we will receive a quick briefing from staff on the grant program and its authorities under the IIJA. I think we'll pass it over to Jared with the Division of Emergency Management.
Good morning, committee members and guests. Attached in the agenda and the meeting materials, you'll find a 2-page document. Now, the main points pertaining to the financial and administrative policies for the state and local cybersecurity grant program. Under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, $200 million has been obligated for federal fiscal year 22, of which 185 million will be dispersed among the 56 states and territories, specifically for the state and local cybersecurity grant program, with a cost share of 90% federal and 10% local. The totality of the state and local cybersecurity grant program is scheduled as of now to end after the release and performance period of the federal fiscal year 2025, with the breakdowns of funding being as FY22, 200 million, FY23, 400 million, FY24, 300 million, and FY25, 100 million. As you can see, this grant is designed to be scaled down towards the end of the grant cycle. So it is imperative, since the future of the grant program continuing is unknown, that the project submitted will have a plan for outside funding if it is a continued or ongoing cost. We here at DEM, as a state administrative agent, is still developing the grant program, and once we finalize the state cybersecurity plan, we fill all the seats in the committee and my staff will then create the application for projects then we will be able to start accepting applications for consideration of grant funding. The timetable of this is unknown, but our goal is before the start of FY23. With that, I'll field any questions, or if you prefer, please don't hesitate to contact me offline with anything you may have.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jared. Is there any questions or discussion on what you just presented? Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Jared. I think we are good to close out item number 7 and move into item number 8, the development of the statewide cybersecurity strategic plan. And this is for discussion and possible action. So this was drafted between Office of Cyber Defense and Coordination and our state chief information security officer. I'm not sure if maybe Bob or Akeem wanted to start us off with kind of the direction that you were going with this, and maybe a quick overview.
Sure. Unless you want to talk about it, I can go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay, so our philosophy with this plan is to kind of start at the fundamentals and work our way up. We included a diagram of the structure for cybersecurity foundations. There's a pyramid in there which kind of shows the basics you need to do in order to achieve a mature cybersecurity program. And we kind of want to start at the ground level and work our way up. There's various levels of cybersecurity maturity across the state. But most entities approach the cybersecurity security and cybersecurity fundamentals model just kind of it's more of a piecemeal as opportunity presented itself to put items in place, as opposed to a rigorous starting at the bottom and working your way up, mostly because of taking advantage of opportunities as they came along. And that's like the nature of projects in a growing environment, in a growing operational environment. So our focus is kind of to take a step back to look at the fundamentals, look at what exists across every entity and where we are missing in the fundamentals, and from the ground up, work to bring every entity up to a solid foundational level to allow those higher levels of cybersecurity functionality to function effectively because the fundamentals are in place. So our plan was to kind of identify a lot of those fundamentals and then focus on discovering where they have been implemented, where they still need to be implemented, and work on getting them implemented across the board, starting from the bottom level and working up.
Thank you very much, Akeem. Bob, do you have anything you want to add?
Sure. Just to dovetail in with that, the purpose of this plan is to look at cybersecurity at a statewide level. And to this date, that really hasn't been done. When we started looking at the requirements and the questions that were being asked, there were more unknowns than there were knowns. And that's simply because of the federated nature of the state. It's not that any single entity isn't doing anything. We just don't know about it. So we had to write this plan from a perspective of, we don't know a lot of the answers to these questions. We know that there are entities out there, cities and counties and state level agencies that are doing a lot of this stuff very well, but we don't know what the statewide view is. And so from our perspective, that feels like it needs to be step one. We need to answer the questions for ourselves. We need to get an understanding of the various levels at different places in the state, where people are at, where their strengths are, what resources we have out there that we might be able to leverage statewide and not need to invest in because we can make it available. What things out there are common needs that maybe can be purchased or contracted at a statewide level, and really exercise those economies of scale and get the best pricing for it and provide it across the board, so that, you know, the old rising tide raising all boats in the desert. And you know, and then identify the entities that have special needs that don't necessarily translate statewide that maybe we could help with. So, you know, a lot going on here, but as Akeem said, we have to start with square one. We have to understand where we're at before we start looking at where we're headed.
Awesome. Thank you both for that quick overview. It's really helpful. I do want to open it up to some quick discussion, but I know that this is the first time a lot of the task force members are seeing the strategic plan or the plan itself. So I'm not sure that we'll want to take it quite to a vote yet, but do want to open it up for discussion on where we're at with it and any ideas or considerations we should have within the plan.
Chair Dave Overson.
Go ahead.
So the plan becomes very important because of all the grant funding. Any projects that a city, county, or the state wants to do has to fit within the cybersecurity plan we develop. And so part of this process is going to be getting this plan ironclad for what we need to do for this first year. And then we'll send it out to individuals who want to submit a project to be funded by the grant process. And they have to be able to tie that project back into the plan. So when you're reviewing this, consider what needs to be done and how it needs to be done to ensure that those projects would fit within this plan for us.
Thank you very much, Dave. Mr. Wood, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just to piggyback kind of what Chief Fogerson was just talking about, from our perspective, we, and reading through the plan, it seems from a county perspective that it's more geared towards the state as a whole. I would like to see a little more, maybe it's just some verbiage change to better adapt to what the county's needs are as well as the cities. I've worked personally, I currently work for Washoe County, but I previously worked for Douglas County. And so I'm familiar with what some of the small rural counties encounter. And so at first take on the cybersecurity plan, I really like it, except I would ask that we can put a little more effort into non-state agencies to be represented specifically, because the state is a very large organization. And so I feel like sometimes the counties and the local cities get missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wood. Is there any other discussion? Awesome. I think with that, we're able to move on to agenda item number 9, steps moving forward. So we'll discuss next steps in cybersecurity, including the discussion of state agencies' roles and responsibilities between the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security and the Office of Cyber Defense and Coordination, as well as the Chief Information Security Officer. So really in this agenda item, we want to talk about how often we should meet, what kinds of things we should be discussing, and where we want to ensure this task force is headed and what we're trying to accomplish. So just want to open it up to the task force for a discussion on this item. Maybe we did a good enough job in all the other agenda items to know kind of what this looks like, but.
This is Kerry Underwood, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center. For the record, I would like to take a look at the contents of this and to the point that a couple gentlemen made earlier. I think you're going to get a very different response from the different parts of the state, because how this is going to affect us is going to be very different than a rural county where you're talking about perhaps a very small number of stakeholders versus getting more urban up in our Washoe County area versus getting very urban. To my City of Las Vegas partners here earlier, we would have to digest this, not just agency specific, but even urban area specific. This may be a topic for our UAG down here, and how do we want to take a look at this from multiple cities, one county perspective, especially as it applies to understanding how we would submit for projects that fit the state plan, right? And so I think this group probably needs to discuss exactly how they're going to be very flexible or fungible in working with the very different dynamics they're going to experience across the state.
Thank you very much, Mr. Underwood. And I think that kind of goes also into what the federal requirements are within the grant as well, and how we can be within those guardrails and meet the needs of our many diverse types of cybersecurity environments we have across the state. Is there any discussion from task force members on this item? I think, Chief, is there any considerations on timing that we should be aware of?
I'd like to see if we couldn't meet in the next couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. 3 weeks probably better, given holidays, stuff like that. So that way we can get the cybersecurity plan adopted, and then that way we can then release the grant applications. That way then people know what to build a project for in that cybersecurity plan. So if we could meet again and maybe after Thanksgiving, and that gives the committee members, the task force members time, I think, to look at that cybersecurity plan and get their information back to you on any changes they like. So that way by next meeting, we approve that plan, and then we can open up the grant applications.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief. Any additional thoughts on this item before we move into our last one?
This is Akeem Patel. I think also once we adjust for the holidays, every 2 weeks would probably be a good time frame until we settle on a permanent plan going forward.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Well, I think with that, we can close out agenda item number 9 and move into our final public comment. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item until it has been officially specifically included in an agenda of an upcoming meeting. And we will give a couple minutes for the live stream to catch up. The information to join the call to be able to make public comment is in the agenda.
Chair Dave Overson.
Go ahead, Dave.
We're going to send out to the Homeland Security listserv. We have some no cost, so free, because the federal government has to say that 2 ways to make sure everybody gets it, I guess. FEMA funded cybersecurity training from TEACS. Southern Nevada's already jumped on this and is hosting some of the classes for us. So we'll make sure that everybody gets a chance to look at it, and that way we can see if we need to host it in other locations throughout the state as well.
Thank you very much. Is there any additional public comment? If you've called in, it's probably star 6 to unmute yourself. Okay, well, I think we can move into our last agenda item, number 11, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Overson, I make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
James Wood, second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. We will, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you all very much. Thank you all for joining for our first cybersecurity task force meeting, and look forward to seeing you all on the next one.